You're listening to All In. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you fulfill the mission of God in your life and around the world. I'm your host, Jeff Roper. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of All In. So glad to have you with me today. Now this week I'm not doing an interview of a guest. I've just got some stuff here I'd like to share with you that's been on my heart, and I thought I would take a few minutes to just share it with you one-on-one and let you know about some stuff I've been thinking about. I've titled this 5 B Attitudes for Success. Now I hope it's not being blasphemous for me to call it something close to the Beatitudes, but each one of these 5 points begin with the word be. And these are attitudes that I have found over the last few months, or I suppose over the last few months, doing some retrospect and introspective processing in my own life, trying to learn all of the ways that I can ultimately be healthy, spirit, soul, and body. I became aware of this pursuit shortly after the beginning of this year. Every year I set aside some time in January to set out my goals for the year, some big, hairy, audacious goals that involve everything from some ministry goals to some personal goals. And, these can be some projects like building a deck that I'm going to do this year in my backyard, to running a marathon in a certain amount of time with no injuries. And it could also involve some spiritual dynamics, some different things like that. Weight loss goals, health goals, all of those type of things that I just set out. And one of the things I noticed, though, was that more than focusing on goal setting, that I keep finding myself wanting to focus more on what are the healthy processes and practices I just simply need to do every single day that guarantee the outcome that I'm looking for. Just to set it up on autopilot, as it were, and let it just run its course by building habits and disciplines and practices in my life, so that I'm not just focused on a goal or a task or a project, but rather I'm focused on developing a healthy lifestyle that as a daily habit. It's kind of like the difference between diet versus a diet. When I talk about diet, I don't think about a temporary project where I'm trying to lose weight. I'm talking about and thinking about a lifestyle choice in order to gain health. Because that's when I talk about diet, I'm talking about what I eat on a regular basis, how I drink water on a regular basis, how I get enough rest, exercise, etc. All of those things. That's what I'm thinking about with diet. But anymore, the word's been so hijacked by commercialism that diet has become a faddish thing that you do in order to fit into your summer clothes or whatever. And that's really not my objective or my thinking on it. But here are the things I've been reflecting on, and I've noticed in the course of my life of growing as a leader and as a person. Here are 5 attitudes that have shaped my life and that I think are setting me up for living a good, successful life. And I wanted to share them with you and get your input and tell me what you think about it. You can send me a note, email me, or Facebook direct message me, or leave a note in the comment section on the website or Facebook, whatever you want to do. Or you can completely ignore it, whatever your choice is. The first of the attitudes is the attitude to be prepared. I remember sitting on a train several years ago. We were, Debbie and I were with some missionary friends and a U.S. pastor and his wife. And we were taking the train from Budapest, Hungary, going up to Vienna. And Debbie and I were going to get off in Bratislava and spend a few days there. And on that train ride, the pastor that was with us from the U.S., we were just talking, and he said something that some advice that had been given to him by a well-known Christian author and psychologist here in the United States by the name of Archibald Hart. Uh, and Art had told Dennis, the pastor I was with, said, Dennis, prepare yourself for the highest job that you could ever imagine yourself aspiring to. Whatever that job is, prepare yourself for it. And whether you end up getting that job or not, you'll like the person you become. And when Dennis was sharing this on the train, it, boy, I tell you, it really stuck in my heart. And I thought, boy, that's some advice I wish someone would have given me when I was 21, 22 years old. And I really took it to heart those years ago, and to think about what are the highest levels of leadership and aspiration that I would have. And you do this for yourself as well. You think about, do you want to be the CEO of your company? Do you want to be the entrepreneur? Do you want to be the senior pastor of a growing church? Do you want to be a missionary? Whatever your highest ambition is in the calling that God has given to you, what's the highest level that you could imagine reaching that you would say, that's really in my heart of hearts, that's what I'd love to aspire to. That's not a bad thing, by the way. It's like it says in Timothy. Paul told Timothy, he said, the person who aspires to the office of a bishop, well, he desires a good thing. Aspiration and desire and ego is not a bad thing as long as it's under the subjection of the Holy Spirit and the will of God and the Word of God. So what is the highest level you could ever aspire to and that you would hope to reach? Well, go prepare for that. What are the skills necessary? What's the thinking necessary? What's the education necessary? What are the real life experiences that you would need to reach that level? You're not nobody's going to just walk into your cubicle one day, or your office one day, or your floor in the shop and say, hey, you know what, the board was meeting and we decided we want you to be the CEO. No, you have to prepare for this. You have to work your way forward into this. Jack Welch, who was the head of General Electric, he started at the very bottom and he worked his way up to being one of the most successful CEOs in corporate American history. And each one of us have these things that are in our hearts that we aspire to, and begin preparing for those things. See, because you have to prepare now, because when the opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. Be ready. It's like the Boy Scouts say, or the Boy Scouts taught me to always be prepared, always be ready. And so developing this attitude of where am I going, what are my aspirations, what skills do I need if this opportunity ever comes available, and start preparing for it now. And I find that as I do this, I actually just simply enjoy the person that I am becoming. So the first attitude is the be prepared attitude. Second attitude that I have found to be very helpful is to be effective. Years ago, I suppose this would have been back in the 1980s, a book came out by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And man, it was all the rage. And it was a great book. It's still well worth a read. It's just great principles about being effective, not just efficient. We'll talk about efficient in a minute, but being effective, meaning he focused in that book on character, purpose, destiny, leaving a legacy. Great book. I would highly recommend. If you've never read that book, it's still one of the greatest personal development, leadership, and business books, in my humble opinion, that have ever been written. And through that book, I learned that there are certain things that I can excel at. These are the things that I am uniquely gifted and called by God to do, and that I can do exceptionally well. And each one of you have something that is really your sweet spot. That's something you're really good at. And learning what that is, being effective in that thing. And then the second aspect of it, the other side of the coin on effectiveness, is what are the things that only I can do, in whether it's as a parent or as a leader of an organization, a leader of other people. We can so easily get bogged down with things that other people should actually be doing. And so on a regular basis, pretty much every day, when I'm looking at my stack of stuff that needs to get done on a daily basis, I have to ask myself, am I the best person to do this? Not can I do this, or should I do this, or should it be done? But, obviously you should ask the question, should it be done? Second question is, who should do it? I'm not necessarily the best person to do that particular thing. And the things that should take priority are the things that only you can do. You cannot outsource certain roles and functions of your leadership. So being clear on that, being effective in that. And the third attitude to develop is the attitude to be efficient. Not only to be prepared, not only to be effective, but to be efficient. The second book that I would recommend as far as leadership development, management, etc., is a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. I've described it this way in some other writings that I've done on this, that Stephen Covey in his book Seven Habits, he taught me what to do, and David Allen in Getting Things Done taught me how to do it. And it's a great book on just practical, you got stuff in your inbox, you got stuff you got to do. How do you do it? How do you get it done? What's the best way to get things done? How do you set it up so that at the end of your day, your inboxes are all zeroed out, they're all emptied out, that you don't feel like you've got stuff just hanging over your head, that the things you needed to do today got done. Great book. I would highly recommend it. One of the little tricks that I've learned, or tactics that I've learned, it's not really a trick, it's just a little tactic. I picked this up somewhere along the way, is in my current role as an area missionary, the probably the most draining aspect of it honestly can be the amount of email that you have to deal with. And I have this love-hate relationship with email because I love the fact that we can instantly communicate with people anywhere in the world. And it really is a gift. And so I have to keep my attitude about it correct. But I also have to realize that I could end up getting buried in it. Like you, I get way too many emails on a daily basis. And I learned this little technique I think it's called the Pomodoro technique, and it's basically, they came up with a fancy little, I think it's an Italian word for tomato, because they would take a little timer that was shaped like a tomato, and it had a 25-minute egg timer basically. And you would work on a project for 25 minutes. When the alarm goes off, you take a 5-minute break. So I let my emails build up and during the course of the day, and then sometime generally late morning or early afternoon, when I've gotten my other critical things taken care of, I'll get my iPhone out, and I've got a timer on there that just comes built into the phone, a little stopwatch or a timer rather, that I've got set to 25 minutes, and I'll hit start, and I'll just start burning through my emails. And I kind of have a rule on answering emails. So if any of you have ever emailed me and I've sent you back a short one, it's normally, my rule is one topic per email, and no more than 5 sentences. And that's my goal, and that's part of how I keep my emails managed. And then I'll hammer through them, and then in 25 minutes the little alarm will go off. I'll take a break. I'll go get a drink of water. I'll stretch. I'll do something else. I'll move around physically, and then I'll come back, start the timer again, go right back into it. And that's a way that I've learned to be efficient, so that when I'm looking at downloading my email, and I've got, say, 50 to 75 emails that show up, this just gives me a running track to say, okay, I've got to get through these. I got 25 minutes, respond in 5 sentences or less, or delete, unsubscribe, whatever it is that I need to do, and just really hammer through that. And it gives me a timeline. It's just really been a very effective thing that helps me to be efficient. Number 4, number 1, we did talk about being prepared, Number two, we talked about being effective. Number three, we talked about being efficient. Number four is be intentional. This is a mindset that begins to develop. You look at your life, and sometimes we talk about time management, and time management really is a myth, because no matter how you deal with your life, you're never going to have more than 24 hours a day. You're never going to have more than 7 days in a week. You're never going to have more than the time that you've already got. So it's not really that you're managing your time, it's that you're managing yourself. It's really more about self-management, which begins with intentionality. And so, you become aware of when are the cycles of your best creativity and rhythm? When are the times of the day that are best for you to do things? I know for myself that if I get up in the morning and I check email, or I get on Facebook, or I do anything related to the internet, I have just gone down a black hole that will sap all productivity from my life and my mind for the rest of the day. So I've intentionally set up a buffer, that my buffer zone is, I normally need to be awake and have spent my morning doing my devotional time and prayer time and all of that. I need to be awake for at least 2 hours before I touch the internet. And I prefer to be even longer. The times that I do make exceptions to this are when I'm expecting a critical email or confirmation about something that I need to have for the planning for that upcoming day. Like this morning, I needed to hear from a friend in a different country. We've been working on trying to schedule the time to talk on the phone, and because we're in about 8 different time zones away from each other right now, I needed to check to see if I was going to be talking with this person early this morning. So I did check the email, but I didn't get into all the other ones. I just looked for his name to find out if we were scheduled for that phone call. So I do, it's a rule. It's a tool. It's not a rule for my life. But I like that green space, that buffer that keeps me protected from the black hole of the internet. Uh, so I manage my time. I manage my energy. I know that in the mornings I have far more energy. In the afternoons, I'm kind of getting that afternoon lull. That's a good time to do administrative things, run errands, answer emails. So I kind of stack my day according to my energy and my focus, and where am I good at what parts of the day. So being intentional about all of that. Here are a couple of books I've recommended to you over the course of this podcast that, again, I think will help you. One is called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and this book is just great. It really is. I would highly recommend that. If you're really struggling with some of these items, read Essentialism. The second one is a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, and these books have a great message to them, and I think you'd benefit, especially if you're struggling in some of these areas. And finally, the fifth mindset, the fifth beatitude that I'd like to share with you, is the one that has had the most prominence in my life for the last 12 months or so. I've done pretty good in my life, walking with Jesus for more than 30 years, of 35 years of learning these other ones, of being prepared and effective and efficient and intentionality. But the one that I'm learning right now that has really been pressed into my heart is to be present. I feel like most of my life is a blur. I look back when my kids were young, and great memories, but boy, I tell you, I think I ripped them off. I think they got cheated and I got cheated, because I was never able in my own mental makeup to be present. The mind seems to live in this binary reaction mode, that it's either thinking about the past or thinking about the future. It's never thinking about the present. It's never just present at the moment. And it seems to be, messed up human nature. Even, on this weekend, we took one of our grandkids out for breakfast, and I tell you, it really is true when you see these little funny sayings about kids are God's reward for parenting. It really is true. And we took one of our little granddaughters out for breakfast, and I normally don't eat grains. I don't normally eat sugars, but we took her out to Denny's and ordered. She had chocolate chip pancakes, and Debbie had pancakes with some berries on them, and I had a big old omelet. Oh man, we were just having a blast and just having so much fun. There was nothing else in the world for us. I was just so enjoying being with our little granddaughter. And she says, Grammy, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? And I just saw it right there. Here she is having a time of her life, special one-on-one time with Grammy and Grampy, and all she's thinking about is, what are we going to do next? And that really is so much of what happens to us. Is so many things are happening around us that we miss what's happening right now. How many times have you seen parents at their kids' functions, and instead of sharing life or the moment with their kids, they're on Facebook or they're texting. I remember sitting at a restaurant one time with my wife, beautiful sunny day. We're sitting there, and right next to the table, right next to our table, was another family, a husband, a wife, and a daughter, teenage daughter, and all three of them have their phones out, and they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're doing whatever they are doing while they're sitting at this restaurant. And I thought, what a tragedy that here this family is out sitting at the same table, but they are nowhere near being together at the table. And don't miss your life. Be present for it. So this started for me about a year ago. Like I said, I started writing in my daily journal that I keep. I started making it this affirmation that today I am fully present. And I would just tell myself, today I am fully present. Uh, because I just feel like so much of my life was a blur. I was thinking about it this morning, looking back when my kids were young. I had a season in my life where I was pastoring the church. I was working a job. I was teaching a course at a local Bible school. And I was taking another course on New Testament Greek. And boy, I tell you, that's enough. And we had three small children. We had small kids. We had a growing, burgeoning family. And I tell you, man, my mind was boggled and everything was a blur. And I look back on that and I go, oh man, that's just not the way to live. Even though I wouldn't trade any of it, and I probably needed to be doing all of those things at the same time. But what I didn't master was in the midst of all of it to learn to be present, because you may have a very demanding life. And it's not, your problem isn't that you have a demanding life and a demanding schedule. The problem is the fact that you can't keep your mind focused on where you are right now at this moment. So let me give you a couple of pointers that I have found to be helpful, and these may help you. Number one is to limit distractions. I think that our constant connected culture that we live in now has contributed terribly to acquired ADD. And, we just can't stay focused on anything. You know what it's like? You're sitting there having a conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden they pull their phone out and they start texting or Facebooking, or it's like, dude, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? We're sitting here, because they get distracted. I remember I was preaching in a church one time, and right on the front row, with the pastor's wife sat on the very front row, the whole entire service with her phone out, sending messages to other people, talking and chatting and doing whatever. The entire time I was up preaching, and I'm thinking, boy, this is really sad, because you're missing out, not because of my sermon, but just this is the way we live our life anymore. And boy, I tell you, I was caught up in that. I used to have a CrackBerry, and that thing was a nightmare. And then switched over to iPhone, and that was even more of a nightmare with all those apps and everything that's developed with it. And I've mentioned this to you on the podcast before, but it's coming up on probably a year and a half ago. because it was two Christmases ago. We were heading into the Christmas season. I thought, man, if I'm going to have absolutely any downtime during Christmas, I'm going to have to turn off all my notifications on my phone. So I turned off email. I didn't only just turn off the notification, I actually took email off of my phone. I just completely shut them, all my email accounts down, off of the phone. Uh, I took all my notifications for Facebook, for Twitter, uh, anything that could send me a notification. I turned it off except for one item that is used by my kids when they need to get a hold of me, and everything else I turned off. And I thought I'll just do this for Christmas, and then I'll turn it all back on. Well, after about 2 weeks of that, I thought I really like this, and so I just never turned them back on. And I haven't regretted it. It's been 18 months or more since I did that, and I tell you, I have not regretted it. And the nice thing about it is, on the two different occasions that I actually needed to use my phone to do an email, I just went into the settings, turned the email on, did the email, and turned it right back off. And I've had to do that, I think, 2 times in the 18 months that I've done it. And let me tell you this amazing thing: the world did not end. Imagine that. I was not connected 24/7, and the world did not end. Because here's what I've learned: if you're always connected, you're never present. So learn to limit your distractions. Second thing is, abolish multitasking. Multitasking is a myth. Quit trying to do two or three things at once. Just learn to do one thing at a time. One of the great gifts that one of my daughters gave me for Christmas some time back was a gift certificate to a place called the Art of Shaving, and I bought a old school safety razor and the brush thingy, and because I thought, I'm going to just learn to be present even in the act of shaving, because normally, I just had the quick and easy disposable razors, and I would shave in the shower, not think twice about it. Took about 2 seconds, and wham, I'd be done. And then I learned, just learn to be present. Whatever you're doing, that's what you're doing at the moment. Enjoy it. Don't think about other things. Just live in that moment. It's like the Bible says, today if you'll hear his voice, or give us this day our daily bread. We can't live in tomorrow. We can't live in yesterday. We can only live in the moment. So learning how to do that. So even with the shaving and all of that stuff, learning just to not try to add that and do that to another task that I was already doing, but just simply engage in monotasking. And I found that when I monotask, I'm actually far more efficient and far less stressed when I monotask, just do one thing at a time. Third practice, or the third application of being present that I've found to be helpful, is what is called practicing mindfulness. Now, this is going to sound very weird, and I never thought I would go down this road personally, but a number of people that I know and have benefited from listening to and growing, and I've grown personally because of imitating some of their practices, they began talking about meditation. And I had always thought, meditation is some weird Eastern religion thing. And I said, oh, no, 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 it's not that. It's just learning to sit for a few minutes and calm your mind and focus on your breathing. And I heard about this app called Headspace. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And you can try it too. Look it up in the iTunes App Store, and it's just called Headspace. And you can get it for, a trial run for 10 days or something like that for free. And the guy just walks you through a 10-minute guided meditation where you just focus on breathing. You focus on just settling your mind, bringing it to peace, just learning how to make room for your head. That's why he calls it Headspace. And I started doing that, and I tell you, it really was helpful just to bring peace, quiet, stability to my mind, and learning to practice mindfulness. And then finally, the fourth application of this being present is uh, observing a Sabbath day. And boy, this is so hard. We always feel like we've got so much to do. And God was pretty clear on the Sabbath in the Older Testament. He said, when it's harvest time, take a Sabbath. When it's plowing season, take a Sabbath. In other words, in that agricultural society, I know you got to plant the corn, you got to plant the wheat, you got to plant your grains, but still take a day off. And I know you've got to harvest, I know you've got to pull it in, but still take a day to rest. And there's a great book by this Jewish rabbi called The Sabbath by Abraham Heschel. And boy, I tell you, that is a great book. I've read it a number of times, just some real good thoughts about God's gift of the Sabbath. And even doing that on a weekly basis helps hone us back and narrow our focus to where we can learn to be present in the moment. So let me review these with you really quick. First attitude is be prepared. Second, be effective. Third, be efficient. 4, be intentional. 5, be present. Now, here are some practical action steps you might want to consider taking. Number 1 is to pick one or two of these attitudes and start working on them, coming up with some basic applications for yourself of where are you at, what do you need to do, what are the one or two of these 5 attitudes that you really need to start working on right now. What do you need to prepare for? What do you need to be effective at? What do you need to be efficient in? How do you need to cultivate intentionality? How do you need to cultivate being present in the moment? Pick one or two of these and just begin working on it. What you'll find is if you pick one or two, well, the ripple effect is it will affect the other ones as well, but to focus on one particular one and let it grow and develop, and then when you get that built as a good strong habit, then start doing the next one and then the next one and building it up, and you find that it's a circular symbiotic relationship that all of these attitudes have together. While you so the pick something, start working on. Number 2 is to learn about it. Maybe listen to some podcasts, read some books, talk to some people, learn, explore what's working for you, what's not working for you, and practice. You don't have to buy into it all of a sudden. Okay, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life, and you've never done it one day. Don't make a commitment like that. Just make a commitment that says something like this: I'm going to practice breathing meditation, or what sometimes people refer to as breathing prayers, where this is something I've done for a long time as well, where I just sit down and I'll breathe deep, and on the intake I'll say, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God. On the exhale, have mercy on me. And I just do that for 4 or 5 minutes, and it helps me settle my mind, settle my spirit, settle my emotions, settle my body, just because God doesn't speak in the cacophony of the thoughts and the stimulations that are in our minds and in our worlds. We need to slow down. God's old and he's slow. So you have to get slow so you can hear him speak to you. So you just begin practicing these things. So say you're going to practice for 5 minutes every day for the next 7 days and see how that works for you. And then you can make commitments after that. And then the third practical thing I would recommend is to keep a journal as you go through this. Journaling really does slow your mind down, and help you develop awareness and intentionality. And I've kept a journal for 30 years now, and it has been one of the most effective things for me. I just use a pen and paper type journal. You might want to do yours on a computer, whatever works for you. I don't care. But keeping a journal, something that helps you slow your mind down and become intentionally aware of yourself, of your walk with the Lord, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your processes, what's happening in your world. And journal through this as you're learning these attitudes for a successful life. Well, hey, if you have found this helpful, I would love to hear from you. Shoot me a note. Send me a note on Facebook. You can send me a note through email, jroper@foursquare.org. Would love to hear from you if this has been helpful to you. If this podcast is helpful, I'm asking you to do a couple of things for me. Number one is subscribe in iTunes. That way you'll never miss an episode when it comes up. Second of all, share it. Post it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, send an email to somebody that you know that maybe even in this particular area that you know they would benefit from this. Send them an email with a link and say, hey, you know what, this podcast episode would really help you. We were just talking about this the other day, and I think it would help you. Do that. And then finally, would you consider becoming a partner and a supporter? You can go to jeffroper.com, and right there on the website, you'll see a bright orange button. It says support our work. You can click on that and become a partner with us as we make disciples and cultivate leaders in church planting movements around the world, especially focused in Europe, where our assignment is at, and I would deeply appreciate it. Well, God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, hey, by the way, I almost forgot to tell you. This is May when I'm recording this. It's May 20, I believe it is, and next week I head to the U.S. Foursquare convention. I have to be there a week in advance, and then the week after is convention, and so there won't be an episode in the following week. So that's going to be around May 30. There won't be an episode of the podcast, but I think you'll survive. Love to hear from you though. Send me a note. God bless you guys.
Well, we're done now. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff Roper reminding you that the mission of God is too grand for mediocrity or average living. You were created for a purpose, and that purpose is found in the mission of God. It's your life. Now go live it.